Hey, thanks for listening. It's David Yakir here, and you're listening to Yak About Today. So I've been thinking. So recently we've had some guests on who discussed things like mind over body, holistic medicines, and it sort of got me thinking that it all seems to fall under the Chinese word Tao, which signifies the way forward, the path forward, or the road forward, or sometimes more loosely, people think it's sort of holistic beliefs. And according to Chinese philosophy, Tao is the natural order of the universe. So to take us to a better understanding of Tao, I've invited Tammy Wise, a widely respected mind-body fitness expert, owner of BodyLogos, Inc., and author of the newly published book and 3D video learning system, The Art of Strength, Sculpt the Body, Train the Mind. She's a former Broadway dancer turned Tao minister, and she teaches a Tao-based holistic strength training method that unites principles from both Eastern and Western philosophies. So that's what we'll yak about today. What's up, everybody? David Yakir here for Yak About Today, hoping you are better, healthier, and more informed than any generation that came before. So if the years 46 to 64 mean something to you, then this is the place you want to be. Now put your headphones on, go for a run, and listen to what we yak about today. Hey, it is David Yakir, and you're listening to Yak About Today. And yes, you're listening to a very congested David, which I'm hoping my guest today will help me solve. So we have with us, as promised, Tammy Wise. And welcome, Tammy.
Thanks for having me, David. Nice to be here.
So here's the thing. I tried to introduce what Tao is at the beginning, but I'm not sure I got it right. So two things. One is really explain what Tao is, why it inspired you, and maybe a little bit of your history.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you did a great job explaining what Tao is. Translated directly, it does mean the way, and it looks at nature as the supreme wisdom. And so the umbrella of Tao really covers many different healing arts, and we look at various principles of nature to see how we actually work, because Tao considers the human form as a microcosm of the macrocosm of the universe. So some of the principles, for example, is the principles of yin and yang. So, for example, in our workouts, the way that might unfold is that for every contraction in the body, there is an opposite and equal reaction or counteraction, which is a release. So if in our workouts, we're focused as much on what's letting go in the body as what is contracting in the body, we are able to transform the holding patterns of tension in the body into actual strength. Because the difference between tension and strength is that tension is energy that's stagnant and strength is energy in flow. So when you create that balance of yin and yang in the body, you keep a flow and you can maintain alignment. So that's one example of how you bring the principles of Tao into your everyday life, everyday living.
I guess I have to start saying Tao instead of Tao.
Yes, it is pronounced like a D.
All right. So first lesson. All right. So second part of the question, right? There you were on a Broadway stage one day dancing away, and all of a sudden you're on your way to becoming a Tao minister. And I think I get the part that dancers are very aware of their bodies. To begin with, and yes, they have to care. They have to care for their bodies in order to be a good dancer, obviously. And so, take us through the journey.
Well, as a performer, you're not always lucky enough to land a Broadway gig. Sometimes you're on the road and traveling around doing a Broadway show all over the country. So you're on a bus a lot. So I would read, I would knit and crochet, but I read a lot of philosophy. I loved philosophy, and I really gravitated towards the Eastern philosophies. So Tao was always something in my mind. And when I was on the bus and truck tour of a chorus line, I I was 19 years old, right? Young, fresh out of high school, and my dream job. I loved the show. It was like I just landed my dream job right out of the gate. And so I didn't understand when not everyone on the tour was as happy as me. So there was this older woman in the cast who just seemed, I don't know, let's just say a little bitter, not so happy to be out there. And I just said to myself, when I can understand what she's feeling, it's time to get out of show business. So I just watched myself through the years. And when I started to grasp it, which was around 35, 32 maybe, you start to realize that your entire life you've been an athlete. And when you start to be the older person in the cast, and it starts to be a little higher to jump as high and a little harder to do the triple pirouettes and a little harder to, you start to go, oh my God, what am I going to do next? Like, this is only part of my life. This isn't going to cover my whole life. And you have to start thinking about what comes next. Hence, my interest in philosophy started coming more forward, and I started thinking, what could I do with this? And I started taking some nutrition classes because I was very interested in how energy worked, and I thought nutrition was the basis of that. And in my training, I took a class in Chinese herbs, and I just went, that was like a light bulb. I just thought, wow, the herbs are like high nutrition, low bulk. It's like a shot of adrenaline, a shot of nutrition that can be very specific about where in the body it's serving. So I transferred to the School of Classical Tao Herbology so I could learn about the herbs and continue to satisfy my hunger around energy. And I got so involved in this school, I became a full-time student. And after 3 years, my main instructor said, you could become a Tao minister if you chose. You're on the right track for that. And I thought about it, and I just went, I have never felt so aligned with anything as I have in this circle of people and this material. It felt very true to who I was. So I decided, yes, I was going to move forward. And I did another year of schooling and then a fifth year of writing to prove my knowledge to the Foundation of Tao in California. I studied here in New York. And I became the 72nd Tao minister in the United States of America. So there's not that many of us. That was back in 1995.
Wow. Wow. I have a question before we go into the minister part. I have questions about that. Is it related to Buddhism in any way? Because this is something I've been reading a great deal about, and it seems spiritually there's a similarity.
Absolutely.
And
one could say that Buddha was a Taoist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you could say that they're very, very closely related.
Oh, great. So you become a minister, and now the jokey question, do you go around marrying people?
I can.
Oh, all right.
In the tri-state area of New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey, yes, I can.
So being a minister, are there duties? I mean, do you have like a weekly or monthly get-together where there's the equivalent of scripture in... I'm not sure how to ask the question, actually, but
yeah, so
I think you get the
how do you practice Tao? So I think your question is, how do you practice Tao?
Yes, thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Now you could ask the questions and answer them.
So let me start with explaining what I had to do. My final requirement to become a Tao minister was to write what they called a statement of purpose, which was how I intended to bring Tao into the world at large. And BodyLogos, my fitness practice, was what I wrote about. That was the inception of the BodyLogos method. And so it was bringing Tao principles that are used in Tai Chi or Qigong into the modern day setting of strength training in a gym, so that you weren't tied to a choreography, but that you were actually working on bringing the principles of Tao into your everyday posture and using strength training to challenge that posture. And in the doing, it's really redefined strength in the modern world. I mean, I think that really we still look at the gladiators as our definition of strength, is sort of dominating, hefty, all-powerful brute strength, as opposed to a mind-body alignment that has a very different definition of strength. I mean, look at the ballerina who doesn't have all that girth. There's no denying she's strong. Yet, when you look at the gladiator next to the ballerina, it's very hard to go, well, what is strength actually?
So interesting. Right.
So I really set out to define it in a way that was in our best interest and really helped us become well in our bodies. And so I would define strength as our ability to meet a resistance, create a desired change without compromising ourselves. And by compromising, I mean creating extra tension in the body.
Okay, we're going to go to a break for our sponsor who makes this all possible. But before we do, I'm always being warned that I don't do this often enough. Let's do the contact, how they get in touch with you, tell them about the classes and all that, and then we'll break.
All right. So as you mentioned, I've just written a new book called The Art of Strength, Sculpt the Body, Train the Mind. If they come to, they can find it on Amazon. They can find it at Barnes & Noble online. They can also find it at my website, where they will get a lot more information about all the various services and programs that I have. And that's BodyLogos.com. That's BodyLogos.com.
Any emails or?
Mindthebody@bodylogos.com is a way to email me. You can find that right on the website, though, too. So
all right,
everything will be there.
We're going to do that again on the second half. But right now, we're going to break for my favorite sponsor. I want to take a moment to talk to you about New Vision Eye Center. You know, for the last couple of years, they've been a sponsor of this show, and I couldn't be prouder. I've met so many people that have walked up to me and thanked me for recommending them. I hear all sorts of stories about how they've worked miracles. And as you know, I've been a patient of New Vision Eye Center for years. So when I say go see Dr. Minotti, Reinauer, Tate, and O'Brien, it's because I wouldn't trust my eyes to anyone else. All right, we are back, and I've got Tammy Wise here, and we are talking about the mind-body experience through the eyes of Tao. So I've said it right this time.
You did.
Right? So I think the question, when you were talking about the way we look at strength and your classes, again, the analogy, I think, is maybe, is it like yoga meets strength training, or is it a way of thinking, or you know?
It is a way of channeling energy in your body so that it's always in flow as opposed to getting compressed. So you could say yoga meets strength training. It has that quality. It's got very different ideals. But we work with the theory of yin and yang. We work with the 5-element theory. We are a microcosm of the macrocosm of the whole. All of these principles are brought into the strength training of BodyLogos. And BodyLogos is the method that is outlined on the pages of The Art of Strength, the book. So that's where you'll find all of the, it's like the Bible of BodyLogos. But through BodyLogos, you are practicing Tao. Because in BodyLogos, there's two things that separate it from other fitness techniques. One is it looks at the body as a psyche-muscular blueprint, meaning every muscle group has a different emotional component that it carries, just like every organ is looked at as a different emotion in Tao. And so as you isolate each muscle group, you're isolating an emotional aspect of your emotional body. So you're sculpting your body and your mind at the same time. And I use the mind loosely there because very often our mind is so influenced by our emotional reactions that when we can get those emotional reactions a little more under control so that we have that pause to act instead of react, our mind is then more available to think a little more clearly. So that's the first thing that makes it different. But the second thing that makes it different is it really looks at it discerns the difference between tension and strength. And this is something that I don't think the fitness industry has really touched upon. And it has created a lot of injuries in the fitness industry, and it's created an environment that's incredibly competitive, and it's not very inviting for a lot of people, and particularly the people like your audience that are over 55. It's very hard to walk into a fitness classroom with the music blasting and 20 televisions around you and an instructor who's screaming into a microphone. You're just like, whoa, overstimulated. It's like they're doing almost everything possible to distract you from your body so that you'll do the work instead of bring you joyfully into the body with a sense of curiosity and interest instead of distraction. I just think we need a lot more welcoming ways of bringing people into their bodies than what's happening right now.
So let's stay with that for a second because you nailed it. I mean, this is the audience. And one of the things that I do see in our audience, and that's because, as you probably suspect, Florida has a big baby boomer population that's moving down here. They're retiring 10,000 a day, and something like 10% are coming down to Florida. The others going to Arizona and probably Georgia, Tennessee, that area. But what I've noticed down here is, and I find what you're doing particularly interesting, and I just want to step off what you were saying, is that I see people, they're riding their bikes. I mean, it's a different generation than the generation before. The baby boomers intend to stay fit and active till they're 90. And with all the drugs that come out every single day, it seems that they have a pill for everything. And sorry about the congestion here. But what I notice, okay, so they're walking and I see them on their bicycles. And yes, some do take yoga. But you're right about the gyms. They're on their bicycles in the gyms. There's a lot of noise, a lot of television. And what you don't see down here, and maybe there's an opportunity, by the way, is that a class where it's, I mean, you do have yoga classes. I shouldn't say that. There are yoga classes. But for strength training and maybe a combination of the mindset, the body, the strength training is something that is needed not only from a spiritual sense and a physicality sense, and for a physicality sense, but doctors are telling me that if there was more strength training going on in the senior population, when everybody does hit 90 because they're going to live so long, right, they need to be able to get up out of the chair without holding on to 10 things to pull themselves out. So it seems, how do you structure a class? Let's say it was down here, and let's say we had a big video screen with you on it, and you put together a class. What does a class look like?
Well, it starts with a traditional warm-up that just gets us all in our bodies gently. And then I go directly to abdominal muscles because from my perspective, the abdominals are like the sun of your universe. every exercise you do is an abdominal exercise. And then I try to work from there out. And I feel like your core muscles involve the abdominals, your inner thighs, and your buttock muscles. And I would say that inner thighs and buttock muscles are very often the muscles that are the least focused on in traditional fitness, but they're one of the most focused on in dance, in ballet class, to get that core underneath you. So that's the part that I bring from my dance training that gives you that real sense of mastery over your own movement. But then from there, I'd work outward. I would work with Dynabands as resistance, small dumbbells. For every muscle group that we challenge with an exercise, as they go through the repetitions, I would bring them through a very quiet meditation. So the music is soft, but it's got a beat. And so, for example,
okay, keep going. We've got about a minute left. I was just trying to.
So, for example, if you're doing a bicep curl for an exercise, biceps are the muscles that pull desirables towards you. So what is it that you're trying to pull towards you in your life? What habit are you trying to improve in your own behavior? And you start to give it some attention. And what you think about is what you become. So we keep that whole emotional development very in the forefront throughout the workout.
All right. Now, you got to promise me, because I have a lot more questions, but we are really at the end of our of the end of the show, especially for the radio audience. And just give all the information again before we go.
So you can find everything you need at www.bodylogos.com. That's BODYLOGOS.
All right. So thankful that you came on this show. It really helped me a lot, and I'm sure it helped the audience.
Thanks for having me.